The Galactic Council chamber had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Representatives from 700 star systems sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Kethvar of the Vraxian Empire, apex predators who had conquered 12 sectors, trembled before a small projection screen. On that screen played footage from the prison world of Terminus 7, where the galaxy's most dangerous criminals were held. The recording showed a scene that had already begun reshaping interstellar politics. A 7-year-old human girl named Sarah Chen walking calmly through cell block Omega, where the most feared creatures in known space were caged. "Play it again," rasped General Thokmar, his 4 eyes never leaving the screen. The Zeltharian war chief's battle scars seemed to pulse with each heartbeat as he leaned forward in his biomechanical throne. The footage began anew. Little Sarah, wearing nothing but a simple white dress and clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, had somehow bypassed 17 layers of security to reach the maximum containment level. The first cell she approached housed a berserker of Keth, a 12-foot-tall monstrosity with acidic blood and razor-sharp bone protrusions. These creatures were engineered for one purpose: killing. They knew no fear, showed no mercy, and had never retreated from battle in their species' violent history. But as Sarah's small hand pressed against the energy barrier, the berserker did something unprecedented. It lowered its massive head and made a sound no Kethian had ever recorded. A gentle rumbling purr. "Impossible," whispered High Inquisitor Zareth, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that betrayed her shock. "Berserkers don't purr. They don't even have the vocal structures for such sounds." The recording continued. Sarah moved from cell to cell, and with each interaction the impossible became routine. A void stalker, a creature that fed on fear itself, curled up like a sleeping cat when she approached. The dreaded Nightcrawler, whose very presence had once caused an entire space station to evacuate, gently touched its tendril to the barrier where her hand rested. But it was the final cell that had shattered every assumption the galaxy held about predators and prey. The Urgast was not merely a creature, it was a force of nature given flesh. Standing 15 feet tall with midnight black scales and eyes like dying stars, it was the last survivor of a race that had devoured 3 civilizations before the combined fleets of 50 worlds had managed to capture it. The beast had killed 14 guards during transport, destroyed 3 separate containment facilities, and had been in solitary confinement for 37 years. As Sarah approached its cell, the chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the background hum of the station's systems seemed to quiet, as if the universe itself held its breath. The Urgast rose slowly, its massive frame unfolding like a nightmare taking shape. Its eyes, each larger than Sarah's head, fixed on the small human child with an intensity that should have reduced her to a gibbering wreck. Throughout the galaxy, Urgast were known for their psychic presence alone being enough to drive lesser beings to madness. Sarah simply smiled and pressed both tiny hands against the energy barrier. What happened next would be replayed across every news network, analyzed by every xenobiologist and debated by every philosopher for generations to come. The Urgast, the galaxy's most feared predator, knelt. Not just a slight bow of acknowledgement, a full reverent kneel, pressing its massive forehead against the barrier where Sarah's hands rested. The creature that had never shown deference to anything, that had been worshipped as a god of destruction by 3 separate species, genuflected before a human child. But the most shocking moment came when Sarah began to cry, not from fear but from seeing the creature's obvious loneliness. Her tears triggered something that no weapon, no torture, no psychological warfare had ever accomplished. The Urgast wept. Crystalline tears, each one worth more than most worlds' annual GDP, fell from the ancient creature's eyes as it made soft, mournful sounds that resonated through the station's hull. "How?" General Thokmar's voice cracked as he spoke. "My species has fought Urgast for millennia. We've studied them, hunted them, even bred them for war. They don't cry, they don't kneel, they don't show mercy," completed Admiral Vorthak of the Hegemony Fleet. "Until now." The council chamber erupted in whispers and gasps as Ambassador Kethvar stood, his own predatory instincts warring with what he'd witnessed. "Council members," he began, his voice carrying the weight of revelation. "We have been fools. We thought humans were weak because they showed compassion. We thought them inferior because they protected their young instead of culling them. We believed their emotions made them vulnerable." He gestured toward the screen where Sarah was now somehow inside the Warbeast cell, sleeping peacefully against its massive form, while it stood guard with the vigilance of a parent. "But we were wrong," Kethvar continued. "Humans don't conquer through fear or strength. They conquer through something far more powerful, something we've all forgotten in our pursuit of dominance." His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the vast chamber. "They conquer through love." High Inquisitor Zareth's crystalline form pulsed with new patterns as understanding dawned. The child didn't see predators in those cells. She saw... What did she see? "Loneliness," came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Sarah Chen's father, Dr. Marcus Chen, stepped forward, still wearing his research coat. "My daughter has a condition. She can't perceive threat, the way others do. Where you see monsters, she sees beings who've been alone for too long." The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Every species had defined themselves by what they could destroy, whom they could defeat, which worlds they could conquer. But humans, these strange, emotional, seemingly weak creatures, had found power in connection. "The security recordings show something else," Dr. Chen continued, producing a datapad. "Every creature in that facility has been calmer since Sarah's visit. They're eating regularly for the first time in years. The Warbeast has been teaching itself to speak standard, apparently trying to learn human lullabies." Ambassador Kethvar felt something shift in his chest, an unfamiliar warmth that had nothing to do with his species' notoriously high body temperature. Around the chamber, similar reactions were occurring as representatives from the galaxy's most warlike species experienced something they'd forgotten existed. "Council members," Kethvar announced, his voice strong despite the profound change occurring within him, "I hereby withdraw all Vraxian territorial claims in human space. Furthermore, the Vraxian Empire formally requests protection." The word hung in the air like a revelation. Protection, not from human weapons or fleets, but from the cold emptiness that conquest had left in their souls. As the session adjourned and representatives returned to their ships, each carrying news that would reshape their civilizations, the recording of Sarah and the Warbeast continued to play on screens throughout the galaxy. And in a small cell on Terminus 7, a lonely creature that had forgotten how to hope listened to a human child's laughter and remembered what it meant to be more than a monster. The age of conquest was ending. The age of connection had begun. All because a little girl saw friends where others saw only fears.